Hello boys and girls. This video is going to be on how to find percent of a whole number. If you're not sure on what percent means, please go ahead and review the video on how percents, decimals, and fractions are related. So when you're finding percent of a whole number, remember, percent means out of 100. It's useful so that you know about how many. If you know you have 50% of something, you would know that's about half. If you have 25% of a number, you know it's going to be on the smaller side of it. If you have 75%, you know it's going to be almost the whole thing. And if you have 100% of a given number, you have all of it. That's what 100% is. So if you have 100% of 50, you have 50. But as a fifth grader, you're expected to find all kinds of percents. 45% of 60, 38% of 90. And it's fairly easy. The difficult part is remembering the steps when I'm not there to say, oh, remember, just do this. So let's look at how we do it. Say we want to find 20% of 50. Well, if we remember when we worked on multiplying fractions, we learned that of means multiply. Of means to multiply. It's just something you've got to memorize, that when you see the word of in math, it's telling you to multiply. And then 20%. Well, you don't know how to multiply with a percent, but you do know how to multiply with a decimal. And in the previous video, you were taught how to change a percent into a decimal, so we change our percentage into a decimal. Change percent to a decimal. And how do we do that? Well, this says it's 20 out of 100. 20 out of 100. So 20 out of 100. Now, you know this zero is not necessary. I don't like using it because then it makes it messy, but just for the sake of simplicity, or actually opposite of simplicity, but just for you to be able to follow it, I'm going to leave the zero. If you're comfortable dropping off that zero and not carrying it over to multiply, don't use it. It makes it messier, but just for the ease of remembering that 20%, 20 out of 100, 20 out of 100, I'm going to leave it there. So 20 out of 100 times, and this is a whole number, so we leave our whole number alone. We can't change it because 50 is 50. It's not like this. These are the same amounts. I'm not changing the amount, I'm just giving it a different name. Like, you might have a first name and a nickname. This is like different names, but it's the same amount. 20 out of 100, 20 out of 100. If I start putting a percent or a decimal on this 50, I start changing the amounts. This 50 is a whole number. There's no other way why 50. 50 is 50. So we leave it alone. We leave it alone. So now we can see that 20 hundredths times 50. And I'm going to work that up here. 50 times 20 hundredths. Remember, you can drop off that zero if you want, because as you can see, I'm just ending up doing lots of extra zeros. When we go down to our second row, we add a placeholder because we are in our second place value. We are not having anybody here, so we have to show that. Then 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10. Now this is a nice review on how to multiply decimals. In order to know how many decimals go in our product, we look at our top number. How many decimal places are in our top number? That's right, 0. We have ones and tens, no decimal places. How many decimal places are in our bottom number? We've got 2. We have tenths and hundredths. 2 decimal places, not decimal points, but how many decimal places? So 1, 2 gives me 2. So I add these together, 0 plus 2 gives me 2. So I need a total of 2 in here. I start at my right and I go 1, 2, place my decimal, so my answer is 10. What is 20% of 50? My answer is 10. And then I stop and I ask myself, does that make sense? Well, 20% isn't very much. and 10 out of 50 isn't very much, so my answer makes sense. Now we're going to look at a couple more examples just to make sure we really understand how to do it. Let's look at 80% of 360. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my percent. 80%. Is that a lot or a little? If you got 80% on a test, would you be happy? You probably would be happy because 80% is really close to 100, so it's almost the whole thing. So we're going to be looking for a pretty big number. So what do? We change our 80% to a decimal. Of means multiply, and our whole number stays the same. And we're going to work it over here. There's my decimal. I have all my zeros, 0, 0, 0. Put down my zero holder. 0, 6 times 8 is 48. 3 times 8 is 24. Plus 4 more is 28. I add these up. How do I know how many places are in my product? I count the number of decimal place values in my factors. 0 and 2 gives me a total of 2. 1, 2. So I'm thinking my answer is 288. I wanted a number that was pretty big because 80% is awfully close to 100. And is this awfully close to this? The answer makes sense. I'm just going to look at one more problem that doesn't use a nice even 1. We're going to look at what happens when we do 1 where it doesn't end up quite so even. So 63% of 79. Right? 63% of 79. 63%, we change it to a decimal and it becomes 0.63 because this means 63 out of 100 and this is 63 hundredths. Of means to multiply. And what do we do with our whole number? Trick question. Nothing. Whole numbers, you don't do anything to them. You're not allowed. So then we have 79 times 0.63. And then we just multiply. 9 and 3 is 27. 7 and 3 is 21. 22, 23. Put our 0 down because we're not working with this guy anymore. We're working with this other place value. I cross out what I've carried so I don't get confused. 6 times 9 is 54. Put down your 4, carry your 5. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 5 is 47. And I add these together. 7 and 0 is 7. 3 and 4 is 7. 2 and 7 is 9. 4 and nothing is 4. How many decimal places do I have in my top number? None. How many decimal places do I have in my bottom number? Tenths and hundredths gives me 2. So I add these together for a total of 2 in my product. 1, 2. I'm thinking my answer is going to be 49 and 77 hundredths. 63 is close to 50%, which would be half. And this would be 80. This would be a 40. Just estimating just to make sure I'm somewhere near my right answer, that I'm not ending up with 120 or 497 or 4. Those answers wouldn't make sense, but this all does make sense to me. So that's how we find percent of a number. Now, before we end this video, I want to kind of combine the previous video of percents, fractions, and decimals. Because what if you're asked to find percent of a given fraction? Just as a real brief review, what if you know that you're told 3/5? How do we do that? We change it to a decimal by dividing. The king goes in the castle. Put your decimal. 5 goes into 3, 0. 5 goes into 30, 6. 6 times 5, 30. 30 minus 30, 0. This is 6 tenths, but we want percents out of 100, so we make it out of 100, and then we simply change our 60 out of 100 to 60 out of 100. See how it's all related? Whether you're finding percents of a whole number or percents of a fraction, it's all related. Good luck!